Good day, good morning, good evening. It's Obli. Itadakimasu. Let's dive right in. So right now I'm playing Frost. Now I wanted to give Frost a little go again. I wanted to touch it one more time because it has been shagging. But not shagging how you know. I've actually been using Rider and I've been playing Breathbane and it's been doing really good. The results from it have been very consistent. They don't really go right now. The way that the sims are, it's quite weird. It looks like you want to go like full just Frostbane, no breath. But I can't make it. It's just not working in a real game. And you know how I'm a bit of a stickler for Sims. I don't want to just blindly follow them and trust them all the time because sometimes there is room, there is error room. Basically, I mean, if you look last year, Sims had Rider, and then you basically used DB all the time, Deathbringer. The reason I like to actually just play them and test them out in person and actually do sort of these dungeons, log the DPS, actually find it out rather than just look and go like, well, this is the best. Because there are so many times where certain situations will put a damage profile ahead, but that is where Deathbringer has been winning for the past couple of seasons. Now, doesn't really look to be the case. I'd say they're pretty neck and neck, to be honest. Rider seems to pull ahead quite far on Sims, but in play, Deathbringer and Rider seems to do pretty identical damage when I test them both. I've just drunk a massive pot of soup, so if I sound a bit moist while I'm talking, that's why. Sorry. But here, I want to talk a little bit about the rotation, a little bit about what I'm doing, where the blast is coming from. So the key difference when you're playing Frostbane is that you're cycling Killer Machine, Frostbane, Killer Machine, Frostbane. In your burst window, you don't have Reaper's Mark. I just licked my lips like a lizard. But when you're in pillar, every Frostbane you do is going to give you a Killer Machine. So you're going to ignore Rhyme. Rhyme does no damage. It doesn't really give you anything. Whereas Frostbane does a ridiculous amount of damage. So if you can get into a nice flow where you are Killer Machine, Frostbane, Killer Machine, Frostbane, no runic power for Frostbane, and power rune weapon. Even if you've got 2 stacks of Killer Machine, doesn't matter. You need to be getting those. You need to be doing Frostbane. You need to be getting those out. Losing a Frostbane versus losing a Killer Machine, losing a Frostbane hurts way more because Frostbane does so much damage. We'll look at the logs in a moment just to go over all the damage sources. You can get a good grasp of why it's really good. But you see in this burst phase here, as soon as the mobs start to stack up their Razor Ice, because the chance on getting a Frostbane comes off of the Razor Ice stacks, once they have some, you're in a pretty nice flow where it's just going to keep doing this. Frostbane, Killer Machine, Frostbane, Killer Machine, Frostbane, you know. So, now, where does Frostworm's Fury fit into all of this? Because it's Rider, now Rider you can summon all 4 of your horsemen twice. So this means you want to send it with your full burst, straight after breath. I mean, right now in this build, I'm actually using Puzzle Box. So that's my trinket of choice. So I'm doing breath, Puzzle Box. Puzzle Box first, obviously, of course. Then breath, then pillar, then Frostworm's Fury. All of that. You can basically macro that all together and you'll be fine. Just haven't got around to it yet. And that gives you your horseman. Then, once it runs out, you don't recall the dragon because you don't really get anything for recalling the dragon other than the 4 horsemen. But if all of your DPS cooldowns are down, there's no real point to have these horsemen because you do also get Feast of Souls. And what Feast of Souls does is when you have 2 or more horsemen active, your runic power spenders do more damage. So you want to pair this again with your next pillar window because that is when the influx of all your Frostbanes will be. So you just keep a hold of this Frostworm and then you could macro pillar and the recall so that it does it in the same global again, but basically you just hold your recall to the next pillar window. Now this does come with an element of skill because you do have to keep a really close eye on whether or not Chosen of the Frostbrood is rolling off. Something I would suggest you to do, which I have not done here, is track Chosen of the Frostbrood on your cooldown manager. Definitely think that would actually help. I do miss it a few times. I don't know if it's in this dungeon, but there are some dungeons where the cooldown timings are just a bit weird. So, and if you're saving your pillar, you're probably going to miss out on this next cast of horsemen. So you kind of have to think, should I summon my horsemen early so I have a couple seconds of them later, even though I'm holding pillar, or just lose it? Or summon my second set of 4 horsemen at the end of a boss fight because I know that I'm going to lose it anyway. I may as well just send it. Excuse me. So rotation wise, if it's 2 targets, change from Froststrike to Glacial Advance because it does neutral damage between the two. However, Frostbane, that you get the chance of getting Frostbane, which so obviously you want to go to Glacial Advance instead. So whenever you can Glacial Advance, do it. On single target, I wouldn't bother. Just play normal rotation. But you see here, I'm alternating Frostbane, Scythe, Frostbane, Scythe. In the bottom of the screen, you'll see there, Frostbane has like a main hit and an off hit, so it looks like it comes twice. But as much as you can, Frostbane is going to be the top damaging portion in your keys. Actually, to be honest, in everything, even in single target now. The whole reason I've even found this build the way that it is because I looked at looked at the sims. I was looking at sims. I was thinking, right, what is a good, what's the best build? Did it? Grabbed the build. Spoke to one of my friends about what build it is, and then gave it a go. Target dummy for a while. I just thought to myself, like, I am consistently doing worse with this build. There has to be a better one. So I was just playing around with some talents, looking at the DPS meters, and realizing that not only does like things like Remorseless Winter just do absolute pennies damage, but Runic Overflow, giving you 10% increased damage to your Froststrike, Frostbane, Glacial Advance, is mental. It is actually so good. It's like how do I put it into percentages? It's a big increase, but it also interacts with Hyperexia, because Hyperexia procs based off of how many, or procs based off of your Runic Power Spenders. So if you're doing more damage with these Runic Power Spenders, Hyperexia will do more damage too. It has a 30% chance to do, or has a 70% chance even, of roughly around about 70 in most logs, to do 30% of the damage that you've just done with a Runic Power Spender. So for example, Hyperexia has a chance to, if Frostbane hits for 40k, it has a chance to hit for 12k over like some seconds. But anyway, it's very good. So this has led me to this build. I can't remember if I flashed the build at the start. I don't think I did. But I will leave the build in the comments below, so you'll be able to see it. But actually, this will probably be a good divulsion into looking at the logs. So we're going to stop the video here. As you know, I just literally just look at the videos back. But now we're going to have a look at. You can see my desktop. So Window on Aspire. To go back here. So at the end of the dungeon, we were about 110k DPS. This is very different to how it actually comes off here. It's like 120k at the end of the dungeon here, but the DPS meters are a bit weird. So back to it. Come on. There we go. So when you break this down, this is the build that I used. Bride of the Apocalypse with Feast of Souls, and then I've taken off Everfrost in exchange for Northwinds. This is kind of more of like a just feeling it out. But Everfrost doesn't do tons of damage. It doesn't contribute a lot. The Rime portion, it increases the off damage of Rime by 50%, which is nothing. It's beans. So it's not even that good. However, Northwinds is good, and this is a dungeon that has low target count and 2 target boss cleave. So definitely worth it. Icy Onslaught, very good. It triggers often if you go to buffs. Icy Onslaught, yeah, you have about 30% uptime on 15% increased damage. But even though it's 30% uptime on 15% increased damage, it can also go to 30 to 45. So definitely good. However, if you do get shitty Onslaught procs and shitty Frostbane procs, you are fucked in single target. You are doing nothing. Anyway, let's break this down. So Frostbane here, an average cast of Frostbane is doing 250k just across the board. Just when you press this, all the DPS that's hitting multiple targets is doing 250,000. That's big. That's huge. You want to do that as many times as possible. Riders Champions is naturally doing a lot as well. Can't do anything about that. Frost Size does a lot less when you're using this build because you must be dual wield. So naturally, Frost Size will be less. But this is the thing. Looking at Frostbane, looking at the 44 million, Glacial Advance 12 million, Froststrike, and yeah, just Froststrike doing like 3 million. Runic Overflow is very, very good when you have these sources of damage. Nothing is really going to give you this amount of damage quite like Runic Overflow will when you're looking at sort of these like little sub talents like Frost Reaper, Frigid Executioner, Everfrost. All of these, nothing will beat Runic Overflow. This is something that I tried to preach last season when people are going Frost Reaper now in keys and current on live. But if you want to go actual full overall, you would go into Runic Overflow. If you just cared about doing a smidgen more boss damage, you would go Frost Reaper. That's it. But if you wanted to do more damage over the course of the entire key, you would go Runic Overflow. Anyway, I'm not talking about live. We're talking about beta. Bottom Fury. Now, this is something that I wanted to point out as well. Remorseless Winter. This is the real damage of Remorseless Winter. 5.7 million over the course of this whole key. That is not a lot. Cryogenic Chamber. You want to keep an eye on this. You want to make sure you always put this in the best position as possible. But Remorseless Winter itself actually is not that good. If in AoE scenarios with the AoE talents minus just Everfrost, which is like that is not what makes Remorseless Winter brilliant. You're looking at here. You're looking at it being just better than your melee. Just. Not even as good as Hyperexia. And you must have 2 talent points to make it that good. Remorseless Winter is beans, bro. It sucks. Anyways, you'd think it'd be much better in a key, but you have to go into Biter Cold, you have to go into Gathering Storm in order to even make it do that damage, and it's not even good damage. The only reason you even take these is because you if you want Northwinds, you do have to either take these 2 or Frigid Executioner. The only other thing I would say is taking off the Remorseless Winter damage and going into Modus Efficiency and Frigid Executioner. But to be honest, I never had any problems with resource management. I was never really waiting for anything. And all of these just give you runes, and runes aren't the problem here. It's more so runic power because it's Frostbane. Because you're casting so many Frostbanes, you are triggering runic empowerment a lot more, which is when you consume a rune. When you consume runic power to give you back a rune. Anyway, I digress. So, Howling Blast, it doesn't do a lot of damage, so it's not a focal point for this build. Focal point is literally Frostbane and triggering it, doing what you can to trigger it. So when it looks like a rotation, rotationally, it looks something like this. Once you burst, I'm starting off with spending my empowering weapon and then just getting this frost sight done. To be honest, you could probably save this for after the puzzle box, but to be honest, as soon as I cast a puzzle box, I want to be in a state where I'm frostbaning all the time, so I'm just going to spend it, who cares. But I also want to get Frostbane's Fury off as soon as possible. Ideally, just macro these together using the OP Trinket as potion as well. But after this, after your burst, you are just empower. I'm literally only casting this just because I need the runic power to do Frostbane. So Frostbane, Scythe, Empower. That was supposed to be, I thought I was going to trigger a Frostbane. So ignore that. This is something that pisses me off. Once you get one Frostbane, you think, oh shit, I'm fine now. I'm going to get loads more. That's kind of how the rhythm goes. And then you don't. And then you cast Frost Strike and you kill yourself. But it's supposed to be like this. You see, this is what a typical burst looks like. You kind of ignore everything else really. Just doing these 2 until you need to cast a power and weapon because you can't do it. Or you finally can't cast anything else. And then you Howling Blast. Now, you are just sat on this Rhyme proc for ages. It's fine. It's just if you were to use your Rhyme proc, you're basically cut. If it would always follow suit like this, where it would be like Frost Size, Frostbane, Rhyme, Frost Size, Frostbane, Rhyme, Frost Size, and so on. But that means like a third of your globals in your burst are no longer going to be able to go on either Frostbane or generating Frostbane, but just doing Rhyme damage, which is not good. Getting your empowering weapon back is also not that important with this build as well. Because I find that sometimes I'm actually sat on empowering weapon quite often, and I'm getting crits out my arse because I'm crit mastery, which should be, I think. So empowering weapon is not as important as well. So overall, you can afford to kind of let go of Rhyme a little bit. Right. So in my mind at the moment, if nothing changes, if the tuning stays the same, I would say that this is probably going to be one of the best builds that you can use in the pre-patch. It's not really tier set dependent. I mean, if we look at the tier set as well, Frost empowering weapon increases the damage of an Obliterate and Frost Size. Frost Size doesn't do that much damage, it does good damage, but not enough to really warrant like a different build. And then the 4 set empowering weapon recharges 20% faster, and Pillar of Frost grants 1 extra charge. Maybe you might just decide to come off of the Remorseless Winter and go into Murderous and Frigid because of that. Not really. It's not that important to have these extra empowering weapon charges, and because Bone Grinders really isn't a thing with this, you're just throwing these out willy-nilly, to be honest. And Bone Grinders procs quite a lot, to be honest, especially when you're dual wield, because you're constantly getting Killing Machine procs. It's nowhere near as like a focal point as it was last tier. So yeah, that's my thoughts. so far. Very good. I'm having a lot of fun with this build. It's a lot less stress, to be honest. You're not really worried about timing anything. You're just plugging and playing. You know, as soon as you cast everything, you're just out there. You're just spamming 2 buttons repeatedly and doing loads of damage for it. But if this stays the same, I'll do a proper guide rather than just like this rundown video. But I think it's a good build. Give it a go, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you love DK, if you love me, like the video and subscribe, please. Why not? It would mean a lot to me. I'll give you a kiss on the forehead if you do. Right. Hit me up on my Discord if you want to chat more about DK, or you want to chat about coaching, or you want my UI. My UI for Midnight is completely available to all my Twitch subs. Yeah, I love you guys so much, and I hope you have the best rest of your day. Bye.